This episode of the QA is brought to you by the Ranier Arms Apex Club. Hey guys, my name is Dave Tim. Thank you very much for joining me for this last Monday of the month. It is the September edition of the QA, and I do apologize for my set. As you can tell, I am on the road this week, so I'm actually filming this on location. I'm training for my day job, and so it's not like a cool firearms class or anything like that, but it's so far hopefully some good training. Can't really talk about it just yet, but I did want to get the QA out today. I know it's a little late. I like to have them out in the morning. You're probably getting this late afternoon. So with that, we do have several questions, but before we get into the questions, I just want to give a quick thank you to all of those who participated in kind of the trivia contest and things like that, posting some comments for show ideas. That was awesome. So the trivia, I can't remember how or what I asked, but pineapple Fanta is what Ike posted, and I can't remember if I mentioned that I like pineapple Fanta or not, but that's pretty much what I usually drink if it's like a yellow beverage. It's pineapple Fanta, and it's delicious. And the companies that I've done install videos for, Midwest Industries, Cross Machine and Tool, Arasaka, Chamber Max, and there was one other one. I can't remember what the heck it was. Anyways, I hope to be doing some more for some maybe other companies or whatever, but that's the other channels that you might find me out on the other parts of the internet. So that's the trivia stuff. Now, as far as show ideas, Craig commented about indoor winter training ideas like laser shot, things like that. So that's actually on my list of things to do. I do have a SIRT pistol. I was going to look into maybe getting one of the, I can't believe it's called the Matrix, the Mantix, or something like that. It's a little attachment that goes on the bottom. So I was maybe going to look into that, or maybe like an airsoft type thing. Laser shot would be cool, but I just don't know if I have the money to get that. But that would also kind of tie into Art's comment about dry fire drills as well. So that is good. Oh, it's the Mantis. That's what it's called, Mantis. And then Bob had an idea for a show. What's the best prep for an AR that will be in the extreme cold, not buried in the snow or anything, but for multiple days? And I think that is a great show idea. And thankfully, due to my geography and due to my geographic location, I have a feeling I'll be able to do something like that this winter. And it's actually not too complicated, but I think it's a great video idea. So let's get right to it. We do have, I want to say, 7 questions that made the show. Now, before we get into the questions, I do have to give a quick plug on how you get your question on the show. If you want to see your question make it to the show, shoot us an email, theqa@gunsandtactics.com. And of course, one lucky question asker gets a prize, but you have to email me your question. You could leave a comment as well, but I generally prefer it when you leave an email because then it comes to the inbox. I add it to the list. But please send your email with your questions to the address shown, and we would love to get your question on. The more questions we get, the bigger the show gets, the more viewers we get, and the show can continue to grow. So that being said, let's get to it. Huge shout out to Ranier Arms and the Apex Club for sponsoring this episode. We are going to be giving away a Mod 2 Avalanche charging handle a little bit later. A little bit more from them here in a bit. This first one's from Ben. I'm building an AR-10 in .308 with an 18-inch barrel. I have no plans for a suppressor. What muzzle device would you recommend? So there's a lot of great muzzle devices. So being that you have no plans for a suppressor, you don't have to worry about the suppressor mount. You can look at things like the SJC Titan, the Venom Break, the Thunder, it's Thunder something. It'll come to me probably in a second. But if you go to, I think it's the Truth About Firearms or the Firearms blog. Anyways, if you search for like top .308 muzzle brakes, they actually took like 50 muzzle brakes. I'll see if I can post a link in the YouTube description. On Facebook, I'm not sure if it'll let me tag or not. But if you search for best AR-10 or best .308 muzzle devices, they'll come up with this list. And they've tested way more muzzle brakes than I have access to. And they actually do it somewhat scientifically. They actually put the rifle with a bare muzzle device on a concrete pad, pull the trigger, and then they measure how far the recoil moves the gun back, and then they put all the different comps on and they actually measure. And I actually thought it was a pretty good way to do it, and I thought it was a great idea. So I'm going to give props to them. Again, check the description below if you're watching this on YouTube, but that's what I would kind of go if you're just looking for recoil. Now, if you're looking for flash hiding, obviously that's a different device. You could look at like the dead air flash hiders I like a lot. That's just what I use because I use them as a suppressor mount, but I found that for a flash hider, they're pretty good, and they don't have that pitchfork, that kind of pitchfork tong, which is nice. But if you want just the ultimate in compensation recoil reduction, I would definitely check out that list. And then keep in mind, it's obviously going to have a lot of concussion around you. You may not feel it as the shooter, but definitely those around you will. And then your second question is, I've heard of people buying guns because of the serial number. I have a Gen 3 Glock with serial number that starts with a DT. Well, it's probably not worth anything more than a regular Glock because you asked what it's worth. But to me, it'd probably be cool because DT. And true story, there was this one time where a gun came into my shop for transfer. It was a Colt AR-15. The serial number, the last 3 digits of the serial number were my badge number. And it was just kind of one of those deals where I called the customer. I said, hey, look, this doesn't happen. Can I buy you a gun, the same gun, transfer you that one? Can I keep this one because it is what it is? And he was actually pretty cool with it. So that's one time I did buy a gun because of the serial number. And truth be told, I do have a couple of guns with custom serial numbers that I happen to get right place, right time. So yeah, it is kind of cool. All right, number 2 is from Michael. Great video regarding the front serrations. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put a card up here. And depending on when you're watching this, in like maybe a week and a half-ish or so, I'll have part 2 of that one. So in that video that he's talking about, we're talking about using front serrations. And the part 2 of that is then using serrations versus the slide release. So the slide release one's not out yet. It'll be out kind of mid-ish October, but the front serrations one, I put that card up there. And it appears that I'm operating my handgun very smooth, was with just the thumb quite easily controlling the slide. Is this due to the type of gun, the slide, the spring? My Glock 19 Gen 4 is very difficult to manipulate with just the thumb. So any ideas? First off, I know it kind of looks like I'm using just my thumb, but the reality is I'm using my thumb and kind of my whole pad here. I don't have anything to grab, but anyways, I'm kind of using my whole thumb here. And if you want, you can even kind of use, this grip part here, but I'm actually kind of using all of that. I know it kind of looks like my thumb's floating, but I'm in essence kind of using this part of my grip. And if you kind of grip down, you can kind of feel how much power you can get. And if you have trouble cycling the slide after you grip that, you could also try pulling back with your support hand, but also giving a little bit of push forward with your primary hand or your fire control hand or your main hand, whatever you want to call it. I don't like to use strong, weak, or whatever, but primary reaction, primary, secondary. Some people call this the working hand, but you can push and pull, and I think that would probably work out. Maybe I'll do another video on kind of basic manipulation maybe in the future too, so I'll kind of add that, but hopefully that helps with that. And number 3, this is from Frank. Good morning. Thanking me for the replying to his previous. Awesome. You mentioned that I put my AR in an ultrasound, maybe a discussion about ultrasonic, what should or should not. I use them a bunch in your day, he uses a bunch in my day job. So I think that's a great video idea. I'm going to do a video topic just on ultrasonic cleaners, and Dustin down below kind of added that to his ideas as well. But I'm going to do a specific video. I just have a small ultrasonic cleaner, so I mainly use it for the bolt carrier group, maybe some Glock slides, frames, things like that. And as far as materials, yes, there's definitely cautions. You want to make sure things aren't rubbing together, and then you don't want to use like certain chemicals don't like anodized aluminum, for example. So maybe what I'll do is I'm going to try to find like an old bolt carrier group or an old receiver or something like that and put it in with a few different household cleaners like Simple Green or denatured alcohol or stuff like that and kind of see what we can come up with. But ultrasonic cleaner is definitely on the winter topic. I'm actually reaching out to a company that makes ultrasonic cleaners to see if they might be able to help me out in getting a bigger ultrasonic cleaner to demo. So that is a wonderful topic idea from Frank. All right, this is number 4. This is from Ike, who is a regular listener. Ike, this is from his wife. What is your opinion on off-body carry like a purse? Talk about that. And then he has a few others. What are some good safety items to keep in your vehicle? What is the best way to keep water in your vehicle so it doesn't freeze? Any tips for traveling with small children? So that's kind of 4 parts there. Number 1, opinion on off-body carry. The thing with off-body carry is you have to realize that you have to be very conscious of that off-body carry. So if you have a good purse, a bag, whatever it is, and you know that it's always going to be, secured to you or whatever, good. That's better than not having a gun. Obviously, on-body carry is preferred. However, wardrobe, body shape, sizes, types of guns, where you're going, everything like that, it can all change how easy it is to conceal a firearm. Now, I'm going to definitely say that I am a proponent of on-body carry first. That's the first choice if you can, because you know where it is. It's secured to you. But if that's not an option, you have to off-body carry. Use some sort of a bag or purse that's designed for it so it can kind of protect the trigger guard. and trigger, especially if you're going to carry a loaded gun, which obviously you should. Or you could look at getting like some sort of a Kydex trigger guard type holster. There's a few of them on the market where basically then you could kind of have that tethered to the bag, so that if you had to put the gun in the bag, at least the trigger guard is secure, because you'd hate to be putting it in the bag and then something were to happen, and that would be a negligent discharge that would be preventable. So there's options like that. I'm not necessarily a fan of unloading or whatever, but if you just throw the gun in the bag, I would say, yeah, that might be a better option so that we don't have that negligent discharge. But then you'd have to remember to obviously rack the gun, which can create a whole thing of proficiency because you might not be used to doing that. So try to find a device that's designed for that, bag, purse, whatever I mean by device, and then practice with it. Obviously, you really want to practice with it. And if it's an absolute worst case scenario, last case scenario where you can't, make sure the bag is sturdy enough. Make sure you're always going to be carrying it with you. Maybe even have a little secondary tether, like a little key clip that you could clip to the bag and then to a belt loop. So that way it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, I'm trying to set my bag down. What? Oh yeah, because there's a gun in there. So kind of a fail-safe, if you will, because the thing you'd hate to do is set your bag down, take a walk, forget about it, set your bag here, forget about it, whatever. You want to make sure that is on you all the time. So a secondary tether would probably be a really good idea. Good safety items to keep in your vehicle. A window breaker, a seatbelt cutter, a set of EMT shears or whatever is a great seatbelt cutter. You don't have to spend $20, $30 on a specific seatbelt cutter. You can go to pretty much any store or search for EMS scissors or EMT scissors or whatever. Those things cut through seatbelts just fine. They're a couple of dollars. Keep them in the headrest, the headliner, or door pocket, whatever it might be. Those things work great. And as far as a window breaker, yep, not a bad idea to have a window breaker because sometimes bad things happen. Also, I like in Minnesota to keep a blanket in there. You never know when you might kind of break down and you were short on layers or whatever. So a good surplus wool blanket, you can get those for about $20. Some flares are awesome. Maybe some candles. I like to keep an MRE or two in there. Yeah, it's going to freeze if it's parked overnight, but if I have heat in the passenger compartment or the defroster or whatever, at least I have some sort of food. Or you can start to look at non-freezable food. So some of the dehydrated stuff, snacks, nuts, things like that, that even if it gets cold, you can still eat it. So that would be one thing to consider. And then it wouldn't be a bad idea to make sure you always have a good car charger in there, power source so you can charge your cell phone, a flashlight, maybe a safety vest if you had to, change a tire, something like that. Make sure your spare tire is full of air, make sure it works properly. Basic tools, stuff like that is kind of okay. I keep in there. Maybe we'll do a video on like vehicle everyday carry. That's a good idea. I think I'm going to add that to the list. What's the best way to keep water in your vehicle so it doesn't freeze? That's a great question, and I don't have a good answer because I usually keep some water in my truck and I will find it does freeze overnight. However, when I've had to drink it, usually what I'll do is I'll just throw it on the defroster and then it thaws out. But otherwise, I really don't have a great idea. I don't know of like a safe antifreeze that you could drink other than like alcohol, but don't go there. That's not a good idea. So tips for traveling with small children. Honestly, what I've found is that, and I remember what it's like having kids your age. For me, having like my dad's survival kit diaper bag made life so much easier. So not only did I have diapers, spare change of clothes, a lot of wipes, food, snacks for the kiddo, but I would also have food, snacks for me because when I get hungry, I get cranky. I would also have some basic Tylenol, some maybe bars or whatever, a couple dollars in case I needed like a vending machine, something or another. Wipes were always huge because I had a situation where we had a blowout and I had to go buy a shirt. It was horrible. I could tell that's another story for another time. And maybe like a blanket for the kiddo, a Nook if they're into that, kind of soothing stuff. And then if there's any special medications or anything like that, kind of always kind of have that, kind of dad survival kit or mom survival kit made life a lot easier for me. So before we answer the last few questions, I do have to give a shout out to Ranier Arms. Now, I do have a relationship with Ranier Arms. They've sponsored the show before. I've, worked with those guys. They're absolutely amazing people. I love the crew from Ranier Arms, and the Apex Club is sponsoring this show. So if you like basically members-only pricing, kind of like your favorite big box membership Costco type store, but yet you like free ground shipping and a discount, kind of like Amazon Prime, but if it all came together and it had all of the cool, latest, newest gun stuff from Ranier Arms, it would be the Apex Club. Now, for a low price of $99 a year, you get free ground shipping, you get a discount, plus you get exclusive access to all the cool new stuff. And if you buy a lot of stuff, it could easily pay for its membership fee within the first couple of orders. So everything on the webpage is available at a discount, free shipping, plus you get all the cool stuff early access to it, the Insiders Club of the Apex Club, if you will. Great deal, $99 per year from the Ranier Arms Apex Club, and they are also sponsoring this by giving away a Mod 2 Avalanche, which I don't have with me, but I'll mail it when I get back. So that is that. Huge shout out to them. Thank you very much, Ranier Arms, for helping make the show possible. This is from Dustin. This ties into ultrasonic cleaners. Can you briefly walk us through the setup techniques and any precautions to be aware of? We kind of talked about that before, but basically we'll do a separate video. The other thing you have to be cautious of is what to do with the sludge. Depending on your area, if there's lead and stuff in there, that could be considered hazardous material. So what do you do to get rid of it? So contact your local recycling center, landfill, hazardous control center, whatever, and basically just say, hey, I have this. It's from cleaning a firearm. It's kind of lead solution. What should I do with it? And they will tell you. It's like for me, I just kind of store it in a 5-gallon bucket and I bring it over to the recycling center. So that is what I do. This one is from Trevor. This is a comment. After sights, first off, the question was, what is the first upgrade I should make to my Glock? And for this question, I'll even insert any quality striker-fired gun. And right now, it is an awesome time to be a buyer of a handgun. I mean, seriously, awesome time. You have amazing choices for kind of that duty carry style of gun. So polymer frame, striker-fired. You have Glock. You have Smith & Wesson. You have never mind. No, I'm just kidding. FN, CZ, the Type B, the new Masada from IWI, HK VP9. I mean, FN. There's so many good quality guns on the market that it is just a great time to be a buyer. Super awesome time. The Grey Ghost Glock that I just did a review of right up there. Grey Ghost Precision Handgun, which is a Glock pattern or Glock platform type gun. But there's so many good times, to be a handgun buyer. There's so many good guns that it's a good time to be a handgun buyer that I think it was a good question. So insert whatever brand you shoot. But first question or first upgrade, and I said, well, sights, of course, because most Glocks don't come with good sights. However, that's even starting to change now that a lot of Glocks are available with like the Agent sights, or a lot of other gun companies are starting to put decent sights on their guns. So then we kind of said, well, okay, after sights. So my first recommendation for anybody would be, you have your gun, you have a set of sights. My first recommendation is always a lot of ammo and quality training, but since it's about an upgrade, I'm going to kind of divert. Assuming you have a good quality holster, and with that should be a sturdy belt and mag pouch if you decide to carry a spare mag. Those kind of things are kind of mandatory for me. But if you haven't thought about that, yes, you should have the good gun with good sights, ammo training, but you should have a good quality holster that's comfortable, a good sturdy belt, a mag pouch, so those things. But if we're just, again, limiting it back to the gun, then you could start to look at things like a weapon-mounted light if you decide to carry with a weapon-mounted light. Things that you need to be aware of with a weapon-mounted light, you might need a new holster depending on what you've bought. It's going to be a little bigger, a little more awkward, maybe a little less comfortable to carry, and then it's going to be a little bit bigger, overall in size. However, then you would be able to identify a target more easily at night. Now, it doesn't replace a flashlight. You should still carry a flashlight as part of your everyday carry. I did a video on pocket dumps or everyday carry. I'll put a link up here via a YouTube card. But it gives you the opportunity to have both hands on the gun and identify a potential threat or target. So a light would be a good accessory. I'm also a firm believer, once you get comfortable with the gun, maybe look at a trigger, because I'm a firm believer in having a good set of sights and a good quality trigger. And some of the guns that I mentioned have better triggers than others. So you could look at an aftermarket trigger. Otherwise, magazines are always a great accessory, or a magazine extension. So you may not necessarily put an extension on the mag that's in the gun, but if you're carrying a spare magazine, let's just say you're carrying a Glock 19, for example, a very popular gun. So you could keep that flush 15-round mag in the gun. That way it's comfortable, it conceals well, it can still throw a shirt over it or whatever. But then your spare mag, you could either use a full-size 17 mag, or you could use a 15-round Glock 19 mag, but then put a +2, +3, +4 extension on it. So if you had to reload, you have a little extra rounds. So that's something to consider as well. With that, then you could start to look into like the ultimate upgrade, which I think is coming pretty soon. We're going to have red dots on everything. I mean, it's generally accepted practice that you have a red dot on a rifle. Like, that's just common. And I think the time is coming very shortly that putting a red dot on a pistol is going to become way more common even than what it is now. Now, I would argue it's still not that common. Like if you took the whole 100% of pistol gun owners, I would be willing to bet that less than 5%, probably even less than that, have a red dot on their handgun. But I think that's coming. So that might be an accessory worth looking into as well. That was kind of a long-winded answer. All right, this last one is from Paul via Facebook. What about items that you have used in the past and have now changed because your tactics have changed, or you learned something new, like a new way to do things? And I thought this was a really great question. And it was funny because I was kind of looking through my old parts bin and I found different parts that I no longer use. So traditionally for me, we'll just talk ARs for a second. Once I figure out that I like something on one AR, I put it on all my primary ARs. So I generally have like 3 to 4 primary ARs depending on like the training class or the mission drives the gear or whatever. I have a short barrel rifle, my dual general purpose rifle, which is my Sweet 16, which I'll put a video up there, which, spoiler alert, I do have a new barrel in review, so it's going to be the Sweeter 16, but the Sweet 16 is kind of my general dual. And then I generally have some sort of like a marksman rifle, a recce rifle. It's a 16-inch gun with a 1-6 on it. So those 3 rifles are generally kind of my go-to 3. And what's nice is that if I go to a class, I can bring 2, and if one goes down, I could use the other one, or if somebody else is going down, I can give them one or whatever. But so just taking the AR, for example, one of the things that I found early on was I was big into this whole gross motor scale thing, and I would use extended charging handles. So I still like extending charging handles, don't get me wrong, but I would not necessarily use the bolt release very much. Well, then once I started to realize that, well, yeah, dummy, this is faster, it's more efficient. I started to look at like the Geisley Maritime bolt catch bolt release. So I put those on my gun. So the stock bolt catch bolt release, I had a handful of those. The original Magpul Mo grips or even A2 grips, I found that, when I have that more aggressive shooting stance, more upright of a grip or whatever, I find the K2 is now the grip of choice. So I have a handful of these other grips that I sold, and now I pretty much put Magpul K2s on all my guns. My vertical grip, the Bravo company shorter grip that has just a slight angle to it, I really like that vertical grip. I like how it allows my hand just to go forward just a little bit at an angle versus completely vertical. I don't do the broom handle or the chicken choker type grip. I basically separate my handgun grip to my AR, and that slight angle of that small grip really works well for me. So I have a handful of Magpul vertical grips and Old Knights vertical grips and broomstick grips and stuff like that. So vertical grips is kind of something I've changed. Flashlights are a constant evolution for me. I found a bunch of old 200-300 lumen lights that I've since upgraded to like either scout lights or stream lights. I'm hoping to try one of the new mod lights here pretty soon because those seem pretty awesome. But lights are something that kind of changes as we do more low light tactics and training. Just having more lumens, I just haven't found to be a bad thing. So that was just some of the things on the AR. And then even with the AR in general, like I've been running an LPVO for a long time, over 10 years that I've been running a 1-4 that I still have. But I found that I have more and more red dots laying around, and I have more and more LPVOs on guns, even shorter guns. I like LPVO. So that's kind of something as far as a tactic I've just kind of found that works well for me. For handguns, I've added a magwell to pretty much most of my carry working guns, whatever. Even my carry gun that I have now, I have the Agency Arms magwell because it's just a nice slim handgun. But even a hand magwell. But even the Magpul polymer ones aren't bad, and they're pretty low profile and slim. Good set of sights, so obviously I take off those. And then I find that I like to do kind of a duty trigger package. I don't make it super light, but I try to smooth it out. Generally like a Glock minus connector, maybe do a little bit of cleaning up so it doesn't have any burrs, things like that. And that kind of brings it right down to below 5 pounds, right around that 4.5. So that's kind of something there. And then as far as other tactics go, I've just started to really, as far as second line gear now, like belts and vests and things like that, I've really kind of adopted the philosophy of train like you play. And I used to have all my work gear set up one way, and then when I'd go to a class, I'd have different gear. I'd have a different belt. I'd have similar holster, but a different different drop, and it would be multicam. And then I'd have a chest rig that was multicam and all this other stuff. But yet, the chances of me actually using that, except for training, were very slim to none. So then it's kind of like, well, wait a minute, why am I doing this? So now I have training gear that is exactly mimicking my duty gear, except for it's not basket weave, and I kind of keep my duty gear at work so it doesn't get all scuffed up and stuff. And my training gear is exactly the same, it's just black, but I have the same level 3 duty holster, same similar mag pouches, other gear set up, my carrier, my vest, my body armor, whatever. I've really kind of all geared all of that towards train like you play and not have necessarily play gear and work gear. So, but that kind of got me thinking about some of the stuff. So otherwise, new ways of doing things. I was running ambi tape switch on my lights on my rifles, but I've kind of then just gone back to the push button just because mainly it interfered with the rack in the squad, so that was kind of a bummer. But I still might look at that because I do like the idea of accessing the light from both hands, but the reality is I don't switch shoulders a lot. Like, I've cleared buildings and all this other stuff at work, but I just don't ever really find myself switching shoulders. I just don't think it's very realistic, and I've studied some officer-involved shooting videos, and I've seen videos of guys using rifles around vehicles, around cover, around concealment objects, or whatever, and I haven't seen a video yet where somebody switches shoulders. If you know of one, please let me know. So that is it for today. We did have the 7 questions that made it to the show, and let's generate our random number. It is question number 6. If you guys can see 6 on there, which was Trevor about the upgrades to a gun. So Trevor, I'll get in connection with you and mail you out that charging handle, and we will go from there. So guys, if you want to see your question make it to the show, the best thing to do is send us an email to the email address shown on the bottom of the screen there or below in the description. That is theqa@gunsandtactics.com. I would love to get your questions. You can also leave comments, use the hashtag theqa. However, the email works great because it goes into my inbox. I make the list and I can comprise it for the show. So please, the email down below is the best way, theqa@gunsandtactics.com. Make sure you're heading on over to our webpage at gunsandtactics.com to see all of our articles and other content, and make sure you're following us on all of our social media outlets. Thank you guys very much for watching, and have a great day.